Hey everyone, so excited to be back in it tonight. It's been almost a whole year since we last did a video. A whole lot has happened and I'm really excited to get things going tonight. I've been unemployed for the last little while, so I've had some time to do stuff. And
You too.
you too. Welcome to the club. No, you're not unemployed.
Okay.
So we're really excited to get things going. I'm going to ask everyone just to introduce themselves, and we're going to have a conversation that's hopefully going to lead us into a really good space, or a bad space. Either way, it's going to be cool to journey with you people. So why don't you go ahead and start, Madala, and introduce yourself.
Igama lami ngumadala wangu bani dabuka le kuMaritzburg kodwa ewamanje ngihlala eThekwini shosho.
Nosipho Ngobane, I am not from the same Ngobane as Madala. I'm also from I'm also from Pietermaritzburg.
I am Uslindile Kagaza and I'm from Guadalangezwa in Mpingeni, Northern KZN.
Depending on what the audience looks like, I'm either Markel or Michael, but it's Michael, and I'm from Durban, from this colonial outpost here in Durban.
Sure. Yeah, so been really excited about getting conversations going. I met up with a few of you guys a couple of weeks ago, and we all thought that this is something that we really need to get back into, and that there is space for dialogue. You guys were part of a movement called Izwelethu. I want us to talk a little bit about that. Izwelethu, what was Izwelethu?
Well, it started off as a home group in a church, Christian church, right?
Yeah. So what we did, so it started as people from the same church, which is a church called Glenridge Church. It was gonna be. So we had a run of what you used to call not home groups.
Connect groups.
It was called connect groups.
Yeah, I remember those connect group nights were getting very large. It was inside your flat, Scrave, and they I remember the one night it was very, very full, and there were people from outside church that were attending. There were people from just different spaces, so it looked like more of a gathering of sorts, more than now, just this kind of church thing. And I remember, Madala and I talked afterwards. We said, like, shit, this thing needs to. There's potential here that this can continue past the, I think it was 8 weeks or so that, those connect groups were allowed to go. Yes. And we were like, let's just keep on meeting,
I joined when they were already, I think they had already formed, and it was a couple of months into it. And I think I joined when you guys were really trying to understand how you can make this an organization. So that's when I seriously got involved with the conversations that were going on and trying to figure out how we can actually make this something that could work, because a lot of people were wanting the safe space within the Durban area. And so that's when I sort of got involved, and I was sort of bitten by the fact that, hey, they're actually talking about, and I had just left the church that I was a part of, because I had moved from Pietermaritzburg and came to Durban and had gone through a few things within the church that I was in, and then I moved because a lot of my friends were going to Glenridge. And then when they were there, and I was like, oh, flip, facing the same issues, and so this became sort of my home for the time being in 2016.
One thing that really made the church get pretty angry, I think, with us, and we caused a lot of shit with them, is that we defined that space as being a place where you could say anything you wanted. Which is something that was very foreign to many people in churches, and actually not even in church, even just in general. Beyond church. Even in South African spaces in society, you can't say what you want and how you feel because of the laid and textured history that we have. And we said you can say, black people can express their pain here regardless of the white people that may get offended. And we had white people getting angry, crying, leaving. We had black people getting intense and angry. We had it was just various kind of conversations, but that was the one thing that defined, and that kind of kicked off a lot of the protests that we did, and the other activities that beyond the dialogues that we did. It it was this idea that like how could we express exactly how we feel in various different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we're angry, then we need to make a statement. So what? So let's go do that. If we're contemplating, if we're just thinking, like, then let's talk and let's like. So we try to express those feelings in ways that we felt would be most effective, and in ways that we felt weren't being expressed at the time. And particularly, sorry, let me just say this in the church context, particularly in the time, because I want to make point of the fact that we were feeding off the background of what was happening in universities. Is that we weren't like, it wasn't like we were just the pioneers of something. There was anger and rage and questioning that was spilling out from Rose Must Fall, Fees Must Fall.
Yeah.
Exactly. That kind of said to us, wow, there's a lot, if South Africa is a wound that's been festering and the plaster is coming off now.
Yeah.
So it's related to when we didn't have like a vision, mission type of a thing. We just wanted to get a conversation going. We were so interested in conversing and understanding other people and going around and talking. We just realized that South Africa has never been a talking nation.
Come on, that's true.
We were just told by some two old guys that we're a rebel nation
We must believe it.
and we must fucking go ahead. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So then we did that. And then when we started challenging those ideals from within our space that we trusted for a long time,
Yeah.
some of us still do, which is the church, the family of God, where everything is safe,
Yeah.
or should be safe, where we should be able to say anything we want to say, where you should be able to tackle any kind of difficulty and challenge within society. And we couldn't. So I know that there's a lot of people who wanted to hold this discussion because what we wanted to achieve was just discussions. There's not a meeting in Israel where we had a solution. That we were not trying to reach a goal of solutionizing somewhere.
That's problematic.
It's problematic because even with Patriarch ended up in a messy situation because of males, as males. And it was supposed to end up like that. If it ended up like, oh, we understand, I would have been worried. So for me, for it to end up in that uproar that it ended up on, it showed that these females hit where it matters. They hit the nerve.
Yeah.
Baba, you saw the discussion.
Disaster.
It was a disaster. And then it shows us that in South Africa we need these discussions. We need them more.
It's interesting, the idea that we didn't have solutions, and I think even just going on to what you're talking about, what happened to Israel is saying that perhaps what happened to Israel and what's happening in general across the world is that there aren't actual solutions to any of these things, A, B, and C. But there's, so there's no clear-cut solution to patriarchy, to white supremacy, to white privilege, to all of these things. But there are patterns of disrupting narratives, finding spaces to see more clearly, and then the system finds a way to build itself back up again. You disrupt it again, and I think that's the constant flow of history in general. Is that it's disruption, and then it's clarity, and there's disruption and it's clarity. And so the idea of this like glorious solution is we can say that there's no such thing. So yeah, I think that it's a profound thing for Madala to say, to point out that we had no solutions, and I don't think anyone has any.
And also at that stage, sorry to cut you, but also at that stage, I feel like we need to paint this picture of these Christian kids who come from whatever background coming together, realizing there's a sense of questioning about identity, because what that space did was it just highlighted how messed up our identity was, and a whole lot of us, the assimilation to whiteness, and so you had to break all of that. Like, this is not who Slee is, and I'm only doing this because I'm trying to fit into this white table and sit with white people, and realizing that we all have sat with white people and these folks don't like us. They're not trying to hear us. They're not trying to hear anything, you know what I mean? And But also the beauty of it was for me, and what stood out the most was if I could sit with Mike, if I could sit with Vicky, if I could sit with Jan, all those white people who were there understood it and who were disrupting their whole lives because they actually realized that no, this is not normal, and this is not a system that South Africans should be okay with, and their whole lives changed, and that is what Izoleta was about. Each and every person has never been the same. Personally, I had to go through I don't even recall 2016. I've called it out of my life because I went into so much depression from the experiences that I got from there. But also realizing that there is potential in South Africa. And it's with these conversations. If those white people and those black people can start questioning themselves and the system, then there is hope. And I think that was the solution for that time. That disrupt your whole world and the conditionings that we have. And then rebuild.
I think the biggest thing, like Kusli said, was the identity thing.
Yeah.
Once you realize that your identity is built on whiteness and making sure that, you sound a specific way so that, you can get far in life, whatever the case is. Then, and also Jesus, I think my biggest thing was realizing that my Jesus was incredibly white and he had no connection to black people. I'm a black child. How does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like, how is my Jesus so white that he doesn't have a connection to me? Because when I say black people, I mean me. You know what I mean? And the worship then started just falling apart. So then the preachers, you realize, Mfundisi from Mshranga, preaching, and you're just like, yeah, but I don't understand what you're saying because context now.
Yeah, wow.
The kids get worse now. It's Halanga. Guys, it gets worse. Huh? But when it's deep. But
Jesus, take the wheel.
But we fell apart. I remember there's a friend of me, like all of us, the girls especially would talk about, are you understanding what is being said? Like, so doing, like, are you connecting? And I'm just, I couldn't connect to anything, even Jesus. Like, I went through a phase of, I was like, am I even Christian at this point of my life? Because, this space is very hurtful to me. And I'm hurt, and you guys are ignoring the fact that I'm hurt. We went so far as to have meetings with people and to try and explain why we were saying we were hurt. And people just validated our entire, experience. And I was just like, how do you sit in front of me and you do that? Like, why did you call us here? You know what I mean? Like, for me, I was so hurt. And, like, when you're in that space and you hurt, and this is supposed to be the safest space ever, and people just don't give two shits. I couldn't. I struggled. Like, it took me having to actually, like, just leave, to sort myself out. And not even fully sort myself out, but to get to a point where I was just like, what, I don't care. It's easier for me to just not care at all. It's easier for me not to feel. It's easier for me to just let it go. Don't even think about it. You don't see it.
Can I just add to that to say that, from my story and from other people beyond this conversation is that, there are people that got really hurt in the church conversation and whatever. Myself, I haven't been in a church for 2 or 3 years. I've never felt better in my life. I don't say that facetiously. I don't say that in a way of like, if the church. It's that actually that my decision was that in my church space, the structure worked in a way that God was defined by a certain group of people in that leadership structure, and this may not be for all churches or religious spaces, but in this space it was, and those people looked and sounded the same. They were all of the same race, they were all of the same age, they were all of the same classing, they were all, and that was very problematic because the whole picture of God was being defined by the same space. And in my head, I know that there are various other expressions of God and various other expressions of humanity and life beyond this place, and I'm sorry, I wanted to add on to that. Is many people left the church that it's, and whatever the case is, but I don't want to paint that as a bad thing, and I don't want to paint and even I know that it's very important to state that this conversation is even beyond church and Christianity and stuff.
Absolutely.
Is that this is a societal issue. This is a global and structural, systemic conversation that goes beyond religion, even though it intersects religion. and I think it's important to take the conversation beyond that, because
Yeah.
there's a hell of a lot of life outside. You know, it's not cold outside the church.
Yeah.
There's a lot of life outside that space, glorious, good human life, and I think this conversation can go beyond that.
So with all that we've spoken about and all that we've kind of highlighted in this conversation, I guess my next big question to all of us and myself, this is a question that I've been wrestling with, is why should we carry on having these conversations? Because it is so hurtful, so tiring. Should we carry on doing this thing? Because yes, I want to do it, but I'm like, ish, I don't know if I want to.
You know what's irritating about this conversation, which I've always struggled with Mike, is that white people don't have this conversation.
Yeah.
Abelungu nje abafuni at all.
Yeah.
Not
They just don't get it.
Yeah.
So every time this conversation might happen, and in the early days of our group's conversations, I remember we watched a documentary where it was called Apartheid Never Died or something like that, by some guy called John Dillinger or something. So this guy explains how during the Truth Commission at TRC, after the not one ones, but where people came and asked for amnesty, so the Truth and Commission committee decided to have communal TRCs. So where a community of, say, escort, where there's farmers and farm workers or people living in rural areas who just live separately and have lived separately maybe for like the last 50 years of apartheid. A Truth Commission will go into a hole there and allow these people to just express and have a conversation, because now they have to be a community. They're no longer separated, you know. This guy explains that in all those meetings, white people were never there.
Yeah.
Do you know who was there? Black people.
Yeah.
Who the hell? Who's reconciling to who?
Yeah.
And in our conversation, we used to talk a lot about this generational mission thing, that if we don't talk about these things, we must decide. If we do not have a conversation amongst Indian people, white people, black people, if we don't have these conversations, the fight that you delay now, is going to find this generation.
Yeah.
So we are saying, if we don't continue having this conversation, that we can have a national identity, because right now we're still talking about personal identities. Eventually we need to get to national identity. What the hell does it mean to be a South African?
African, yeah.
In all our different flipping colors, in whatever bloody nation you call it, whatever that means. Okay? If you think it exists. We need to define what a national identity means.
Yeah.
Patriotically, to be a South African. So if we don't have this conversation, we're just delaying nature, and the next generation will have to fight for them, and we'll be old people, or maybe I'll be living in England, you know. Get a good job there, you know. Nice, live this messy African country.
Go to New Zealand?
No, but they kill people there. When visiting with the Queen,
That's so
I can go watch Chelsea Stamford Bridge any day.
Wow.
Spend my pension there. But we want to be part of this country. We want to be part of this nation. Hey, but the people who are, we need to be nation building with. But this whole thing of called national unity, what do they call social, whatever, this migration thing this all nonsense. It doesn't exist. South Africa has never been united. People say Africa is divided now. When was it united?
It was never, you know.
Yeah, these conversations that you're having, they're causing more division.
How? What?
Yeah, but who says that? Also, who says
What
that?
were we dividing?
What were we dividing in the first?
You can't
you know,
divide
Yeah.
things that way. Wow.
And then,
Just cutting
dude,
nations.
who are you
On
dividing?
the back of what Madala was saying, like at the beginning, is that I remember people used to say a lot that as white people you can have this conversation, but you also have, you know, the chance to go back to your whiteness.
Oh, yeah.
And not have to deal with this.
Yeah.
And a lot of the white people who were in those conversations, I don't see now. They went back to their white lives and white picket fence and dogs and
Michael.
Sorry.
Exception. Yeah.
But the point is that even within the conversation, you know, it's still us who get left with, you know, all the emotion and the stress and the depression and the whatever. White people just moved on with their lives, you know. So, like the conversation is important, but also I feel like, you know, after the conversation there needs to be like an outlet. There needs to be another platform where now we can deal with what you've kind of just unearthed now, because it's one thing, you know, to make me aware of something, but it's another to just leave me, you know, with that information. What am I supposed to do with all this information now? What am I supposed to do with all of these feelings and all of this confusion? So I mean, yeah.
I haven't really stopped having the conversation because the line of work that I'm in, so I'm still having them, and I get triggers when I hear like extremely privileged kids speaking. Where I might lose my job. No, but I don't care. You don't have to. But when you hear kids, so this is, for me, what this has done, right? Coming out from depression and coming back and being like, okay, cool, I can do this again, I think. But I'm extremely angry. So if you're in my space and you're saying the wrong thing, you'll know my wrath. But anyway, and you realize that parents are still having conversations with their kids. And those conversations are not nation building. So I think that it's important to still have these conversations. And also what I've sort of narrowed it down to was, this is not about me anymore and finding the liberation now. It's for the next generation. I don't think that we're going to be the people that have the solutions. No. I don't think we're going to be the united front. No. But if we have documented stuff, having the conversation, the generation that comes after us, whatever they pick up, is from what we've done. Okay. Because I desperately tried to be like, yo, white people, I'm here. You know, let me try be nice about it. I'm here, I want to have this conversation. I really, really just want you to see. They don't. And so this is translated into a lifestyle thing. The way you treat your domestic workers, the way that you treat. So this is not about me having this intellectual conversation with a white person and trying to convince you right now. This is, how do you get back into your everyday life and change? The way that you see the person that works for you, the way that you call garden boy who's a 50-year-old man, a man. So it's your whole lifestyle that has to change. And until white privileged people start seeing the reality of what it means. And this is harsh, but white people should have been moved to the townships. That's the only way that they would have practically understood what it means to be black and what we went through. And we still don't want that. And that's the mindfuckery of being a black oppressed person. We are the ones that are begging white people to come into this safe space to talk. And they're still saying no because privilege is blinding. So, and then they're like, oh, you mad black people. You're not fucking mad. We just want you to come here and talk to us so that you can go and
get over it.
Now I'm mad. But it's an important conversation that South Africans need to have. An important conversation that the government, everybody should have. But yeah.
I'll use just 2 points to state why this is important. Today, from yesterday and today, you know, we had these attacks in New Zealand. You know, 49 people at this point murdered by 4 white supremacists, Muslim people that had immigrated from Bangladesh, Afghanistan, from war zones, refugees, and they were murdered. By these white supremacists. Now, it's the reason why these conversations are important is because that violent act is an insight into the general daily mind space of whiteness. Is that I can tell you as a white person that the thought of kicking those refugees out, those non-white troublemakers, has crossed the minds of 99% of those white people. They just didn't have the guts to actually pick up the gun. Someone did today and did it. Now, the second example, just quickly to point, let's put this in South African context. early on this year, Clifton Beach, very privileged, wealthy space in South Africa, where white people love to go and surf and swim. And you have this confrontation where black people are kind of, there's kind of racial profiling on this beach. And so there's this competition between black activists and then just white people that are there. It's a big clash. And the news cameras captured this argument between this white woman and this black woman who are shouting at each other. And there's this massive conflict. And the crazy thing is that we can be very astounded by that and go, wow, yes, we need to have these conversations, because when we see people dying with guns or arguments on the beach, we need to. But the fact is, what's insightful and what actually makes us realize we need these conversations more than ever is because even if that event didn't happen, even if no one was killed today in New Zealand and there was no argument on the beach, white people were still thinking those thoughts even if it didn't happen.
Sure.
Is that white people have been sitting on the beaches years before that conversation happened, thinking that very same thing is, wow, black people are coming here now, we really find another beach, or wow, this place is really getting run down, anyone's coming here now. Those kinds of comments and thoughts around brides and around, it's been happening for centuries.
Yeah.
And the fact is that when someone shoots someone in the face for being black or a refugee, it's just the one white person or supremacist minded person who took it to the utmost extreme. And that's the reality. That's why this conversation on a global level and on a South African domestic level is needed more than ever, is because are we going to wait for more extreme events to make us go, are we going to wait for more student protests or more for us to go, wow, yeah, we need to have these conversations, it's so important. Every day, these racist, violent spaces are being made all the time.
Yeah.
Patriarchal, offensive, violent offense to women every single day, and it happens. And it's just, I think that never before have we needed these conversations. Not because we're responding out of fear or out of the sense of that we need to say something because this has happened. It's because this shit is happening every minute of every day.
Yeah.
And nothing has changed. Nothing has changed at all. And that's the reality here.
That's so good.
Yeah, Mike, I think you kind of hit on the sort of saying, you hit the nail on the head there. This needs to happen, clearly. We all feel the same way. We all feel like this is an important conversation. And I think that we need to carry on and start organizing, start forming our own narratives and centering around our blackness and creating a sense of pride and national identity as black South Africans. And
and as a white
person.
I'm not gonna say white South African, as a white.
Yeah, I've got this quote
We'll
here
discover what that means.
from George Orwell. During times of universal deceit, telling the truth becomes a revolutionary act. During times of universal deceit, telling the truth becomes a revolutionary act. And so that's it for today's episode of Moving into the Discomfort. We look forward to the next conversation.
Well done. Very first.